Post-feminism doesn't have a unified meaning, but in its most commonly used sense, it refers to the end of feminism. This is in sync with the postmodern movement or movements which signal the end of the modernist grand narratives. And we now know that more or less feminism also was a kind of modernist project. So the basic goal of feminism is equality between men and women, or right of women to equality, right of women to vote, or women's right to vote. The post feminists argue that all these have been achieved and there is no point in holding on to feminism any longer, so feminism is over. That simply is the meaning of, or basic meaning of, post feminism. Here we have to understand that uh, the sense that post is used here is a very literal sense, and this is a bit different from the way we use post in post colonialism. In post colonialism, it is now accepted that we do not understand end of colonialism as such by the term post, but rather a time period or ethos that start with the beginning of colonial process. But not so in case of post feminism. It signals the end of feminism. And then post feminists have also alleged feminism of destroying so many female rights, female virtues, female beauty, the right to motherhood, so many things, which traditional society held dear. So by citing this, they argue that feminism is basically a disease of a terminally single woman, within quotes. Actually, this is there in the Routledge Encyclopedia of Postmodernism. So those women who are single, who are unmarried, and who have problem with men as terminally single women, so they propagate this agenda of women's equality, and they make them fight men and fight against men unnecessarily, and creating chaos in society. Secondly, it has destabilized family life or society life, which I mean family life, which is the very basis of society, and turned, say, children against parents, because feminists by and large do not believe in traditional patriarchal values, which are moral values, turning husbands against wives. So basically, post feminism is a negative rejection of feminism. But then this is not the only meaning. There are still some other people who want to, use the term as an extension of feminism. That is, post feminism is used in the sense of, a very 21st century kind of feminism, especially digital feminism or cyber feminism. But as I said in the beginning, I repeat, this second meaning is less common. In general, post feminism actually refers to the end of feminism. Another important constituent of this post feminist trend, though it is not mentioned directly in the theory books, is the intrusion of two very important components. One is from the colonies, that is, African womanism or Indian post colonial feminism of Chandra Talpade Mohanty and Gayatri Spivak, which shows the weakness of Western feminism. Now, all the allegations that I have recorded about feminism right now is basically also, are basically also the constituents of Western feminism, not so much of its development in its earlier colonies. For example, African womanism celebrates motherhood against first world feminism, or later stage of first world feminism, which sees motherhood as a bondage, that women have the right not to be mothers, they have to enjoy their own life. But no, says African feminism, which is womanism. There's a beautiful book, Buchi Amecheta, The Joys of Motherhood. Now, and then second is, feminism has miserably failed, it is argued, to take into consideration man's rights. It is not that patriarchy victimizes only women. Men are equally victims, maybe greater victims, which is not seen. That is why higher suicide rates of men, because economic responsibility is solely given on men and expected to be from men, and this is actually a far greater burden than many other things, it is argued, then feminism has also miserably failed to take into account the rights of the third gender or other genders, homosexuals, etc., whose condition is far worse than women. That is a bit, you know, a bit controversial, because generally it is believed that gay and lesbian criticism or queer criticism are part of feminist criticism, but actually it is not so. For a long time, you know, uh, feminist critics and in a way lesbian critics and gays were fighting with each other. At some point of time, for some convenience, they came together and formulated the Queer Alliance, but till date, mainstream feminism remains all about women's rights. It is neither men's rights nor third gender's rights. So, and then by promoting only women's rights, as most feminists do, except the liberal feminists, they are kind of creating an inverse sexism or inverse gender, rights only for women, which in a way replicating or reduplicating the patriarchal subjugation of women in the first place. So these are the conceptual problematic areas. And at the same time, this can be used as a critique of postmodernism in general. Now, we know that even if in Europe and first world countries things may be so, but they're not so, women are still subjected to many problems. But at least in the colonies, the third world countries, by and large, the problem of women are much more than that of men. So it is an absolute rejection of those problems of women, and that is why it is not a very nuanced theory. And we can say that this shows, as actually this is what I am borrowing from that Routledge encyclopedia, it shows how the postmodern liberty of thought, that is postmodern idea of accepting everything as true, can lead to something as bizarre as denial of feminism or denial of women's rights. So this was what post-feminism all about, conceptual markers. Thank you so much.